An activist in New York City made open threat against the United States in a pro-Palestinian protest that happened in New York City. And so we're going to talk about 5 reasons why we should be very careful and have our heads on a swivel if you live in the United States, because there are some pretty strong indicators that somebody or a bunch of somebodies are planning large multi-cell terror attacks in the United States. Before we get to our main topic for today is a video, an interview that Kash Patel gave about gang violence in Chicago. Now, you recall that Governor Pritzker of Illinois has been saying there's no problems in Chicago. We got it all handled. We got it covered. He's been lambasting President Trump for wanting to send troops. And this guy's a full-on communist. There's no question about that. So it's not surprising that he would do that. But listen to what Kash Patel had to say about the gang problem they have in Chicago.
Taking the juggernaut that is demolishing the weaponization of law enforcement and bringing it to places like Chicago. When I was there today with Todd, we learned that the Chicago city streets have 110,000 gang members. That's right, you heard me right. They had 1,200 shootings this year alone, 360 homicides. When politicians choose to side with those metrics and not their citizenry, thank God we have President Trump and this Department of Justice and this FBI going in there and crushing violent crime. And President Trump sent us into these cities quietly to set the stage, to set up for the National Guard, to see the success that we saw in Washington, D.C., in Memphis. The FBI has been leading the charge in every single one of these streets because we know how to gather ground-level intelligence, and we know how to put handcuffs on the bad guys, and we know that we have the backing of this administration. And most importantly, the agents at the FBI know that they have the backing of the American people and their government.
So there are 150,000 gang members in Chicago. That's a good-sized city. I've spent a lot of time reporting from Chicago, spent a lot of time in the south side of Chicago, where literally you talk to people who say, I can't walk across this street. If I go to the other side of this street, I'm in a different gang's territory and they will kill me. That's in the United States of America. We shouldn't put up with that. So the FBI should have been on top of that a long time ago. The National Guard should have been brought in a long time ago, if necessary. The first of our 5 points here are that these are indicators that we may be seeing the planning and the preparations happening for multiple large terror attacks across the United States, perhaps, is the pro-Palestinian protest rhetoric as they are literally exhorting each other to violence. We all know that in the United States, we've got the First Amendment, and you can say what you want to say. But the First Amendment only goes so far. And where it steps over the line is where the First Amendment, it doesn't apply if you're calling for violence, if you're trying to encourage criminality or violence against other Americans, right? Because that's taking the rights away, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness from other people in the United States. And so your First Amendment rights stop when you start shouting fire in a crowded theater or shouting globalize the intifada, as far as I'm concerned. We have this video of an activist at a pro-Palestinian rally on October 7th. October 7th is the anniversary, second anniversary just passed, of the most violent and brutal attack on Jews since the Holocaust. 1,195 people brutally murdered in southern Israel by Hamas. That's what started this whole thing, right? So on October 7th, pro-Palestinian protesters got together in New York City, thousands of them. What they're calling for is even greater violence, and not just in Israel, in the United States. Take a listen.
We did not act enough. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. Repeat after me. We did not act enough. We did not act enough. If we acted enough. If we acted enough. The headline behind me would read. Gaza has been liberated. So our work is not done. We must show up. We must show up. Than we did the first October 7th. Louder than we did the first October 7th. To make it clear. That we are not going anywhere. We will keep fighting until Palestine is free. From the river to the sea.
Okay, so this guy is calling for literal violence, and what he's saying is we need to show up stronger than we did the first time. Now, he's identifying with the Palestinians, with Hamas, and so he's saying that we need to join them next time and show up stronger, more powerful than we did on the first October 7th. So he's identifying with them and the carnage and the brutality that they visited. Then he goes on to say, we cannot stop until Gaza is free from the river to the sea. What does that mean? That means Israel is defeated. Israel is destroyed, and the Palestinian state is the former state of Israel. It's very clear that he is calling for violence. New York is full of people like this. That's one of the reasons why I stay out of New York as much as possible, because these people are not sane. They're literally depraved. And you've heard me talk about depravity a lot. Depravity is a very specific condition that the Bible talks about. And it says when people have denied God, that he will give them over to a depraved mind to do what ought not be done. And they will believe that good things are evil and evil things are good. They are deceived. They become tools of the devil. That's the only explanation I have for people being this crazy, because if you doubt me, take a listen to this guy at the same protest as the guy that was calling for globalizing the Intifada.
So is this the trans flag?
This is the Palestinian flag mixed with the trans flag.
Okay. What do you say to those who say that trans people would be killed in Palestine?
I don't know about that, but I know that I'm standing here today, at least 50% of the Gazan government needs to be trans women. Like Muhammad herself was, in fact, a trans lesbian.
Muhammad was a woman?
Yeah, Islam is a trans it's a trans religion. Muhammad herself was a proud trans lesbian.
I think if you said that to any self-respecting Muslim, they would stab you immediately. They would not go for that at all. And this guy is serious. So the real question is not how many crazies are out there, because we know these people are nuts, but it's who's funding them. Who's paying for the giant flag that takes the Palestinian flag and makes it into a trans flag? Who's paying for all the signs? I did some research on this, and that protest where the guy was calling for another October 7th in the United States, within our lifetime is an organization that facilitates and raises money and funds these protests around the country. I looked up their website because I like to go to the source, and this is what it looks like here. This is just the front page of their website, and of course they're asking you to subscribe to their newsletter and looking for donations. But the very first thing you see right over here is a sign that says, globalize the Intifada. If you don't know what that means, there have been two intifadas in Israel. Both of them were very deadly. And in the second intifada, which took place from 2000 to 2005, more than 1,000 Israelis were murdered. They don't obviously mean it that way. They just mean it against Jews. So they want all the Jews to be disappeared, unalived, whatever you want to call it. And at what point do they cross the line into criminality when they're literally calling for violence? So this group within our lifetimes is a pro-Palestinian group that wants to see Israel destroyed within their lifetime. And they are pushing for that. They're raising money for that. And they are very active in the United States. How is that possible? Okay. So there have been multiple large protests, of course, across the United States on college campuses in many large cities that are calling for the same thing, globalizing the Intifada. And when they say that, they obviously include the United States in that. And they are talking about murdering, at the very least, Jews, probably Christians too, and anybody who sides with the Jews, anybody who supports the Jews in the United States. So I want to move on to the rest of the 5 things that I identified here that are likely indicators that we are looking at another large, coordinated, multi-cell terror attack in the United States sometime in the future. And so we talked about the U.S. Secret Service discovering 300 co-located SIM servers and over 100,000 active SIM cards across multiple sites all around New York City. They had found another site that had twice as many, had 200,000 active SIM cards that were anonymized. They're capable of anonymizing and encrypting communications between nation state actors, terror groups, Antifa. The Secret Service knows a lot more than they're telling us. They say that they're not announcing any arrests yet. With 300,000 SIM cards being found just in the greater New York area, do you think that there are SIM farms like that in places like Washington, D.C., or Chicago, or Los Angeles, or San Francisco, or Portland, or any number of U.S. cities? Actually, in that same interview that Kash Patel gave, different interview, he was testifying before Congress the other day, and he said that they've had a huge spike in arrests made by the FBI in the United States of Chinese and Russian and Iranian state actors. That is, spies or operatives that are linked to China, linked to Russia, or linked to Iran that have been arrested in the United States since President Trump took office. These are people that likely infiltrated our country from the southern border during the Biden administration, when something like 15 million people traipsed across that border. And they are waiting for the signal. And what that signal could be, I don't know. But what we're uncovering, and I think we've just hit the tip of the iceberg here, is a large, organized, coordinated, intentional network that is designed to paralyze our big cities and our first responders. And the only reason I could see to do that would be to do so in advance of a large coordinated terror attack. The possibility of it happening during the Trump administration in the next 3 years is extremely high. Now, let's hope that the Secret Service can track down and find a bunch more of these and really uncover the total scale and scope of this operation. I pointed out before that we're probably looking at investments on the order of $20 million to put these SIM farms together. This is a organized state actor. Now, are they tied into the globalized, the Intifada crowd? They very well could be. We've shown on previous podcasts where Qatar was funding one of the facilitators of these groups that organize these kinds of protests around the country. They're paying this guy $70,000 a year to print the signs and to put out the Facebook or the WhatsApp groups or whatever information that would get people together to come and protest, put out the call to the useful idiots in whatever city, and globalize the Intifada that way. I think it's pretty clear that it was a state actor with a much bigger agenda. And we know that Russia and China have been trying to foment unrest and division and even death in the United States by pumping fentanyl across our borders and by starting up massive numbers of fake social media accounts that purport to be either one side or the other, on the left or the right. I think that we can infer that there is or was a very large terror attack in the works in the United States. But going back to that National Counterterrorism Center report that was put out this year that have been shouting from the housetops, Al-Qaeda is organizing and training and calling on lone actors, trying to recruit incels in the United States for lone wolf attacks and utilizing enduring threat vectors. These guys are Al-Qaeda over in Syria, in Iraq, is continuing to try to push for more recruiting online in Europe and in the United States. The CBP has this thing called the Terrorist Screening Data Set, which measures encounters at the southern border, at ports of entry and between the ports of entry, and the number of people that are on terror watch lists that have been picked up coming into our country across the southern border. And the ones that we know about that they did manage to arrest during the Biden administration, or at least in the fiscal year 2023, was something on the order of 18,000. Now, some of them were not wanted terrorists, but they were on a watch list of one kind or another. These arrests that the CBP made, again, only include the ones they caught. It doesn't even include the ones that were picked up outside the country before they managed to cross into the United States. Long and the short of it is, there are plenty. Look, public statements and reporting note intrusions and attempted persistence in utility networks around the country. What do you think they plan to do with that? The last indicator is that ISIS, which is separate from Al-Qaeda, separate from the globalized the Intifada, it's separate from Russia, China, Iran axis, has been continuing to publish and recruit online for lone wolf attacks. We've seen that they have been fairly successful at that in the past. So with that in mind, again, it's just one more thing for us to worry about. The good news is there are plans being made to actually do something about this.